Cheers.
Cheers.
Turns out that Andre is being charged with fraud over allegations that he has been tampering with his mother's life insurance.
What would you do if you found out that the person you loved, the person you spent 8 years of your life with, was living a lie? Not just a small lie, not just a hidden past, but something horrifying. Something that makes you question everything. What if the person you called your partner was not just a fraud, but a murderer? For Gracie Piscopo, a popular social media influencer, this wasn't just some dark thought experiment. It was her reality. Her longtime boyfriend, Andre Zachary Rebello, turned out to be someone who Gracie could have never imagined. He wined and dined in high-end villas, flexed expensive cars, and played the role of a doting partner and father. But behind the curated Instagram posts and glamorous vacations was a disturbing truth, one that would eventually unravel in the most chilling way possible. Because the lavish life he flaunted was all built on deception. And the crime at the center of it, something so cold, so calculated, that it leaves you wondering, just how far would someone go for money? On May 25th, 2020, his own mother, and only 3 days after her death, he forged documents and medical autopsies to get money from life insurance companies. And the worst part about Andre's crime was that people close to him had no idea what he was planning. His 3 siblings were completely oblivious to the fact that their own brother would do something like this. This is the story of Andre Zachary Rebello, a man who faked everything, including his own morality, and the disturbing events that led to his ultimate downfall. Andre Zachary Rebello was born in 1996 and lived in Perth, Australia. He was raised by her mother, Colleen, and father, Antonio. We don't know a lot about his childhood, but from what we've gathered so far, it looks like he had a pretty comfortable life. He, along with his 3 siblings, lived in a great neighborhood. However, Andre's parents divorced when he was young, leaving his mother, Colleen, to raise her children on her own. She was a strong, passionate woman with a relentless drive to build a better future, not just for herself, but for her kids. Despite the challenges of single motherhood, she worked hard to provide for them, always encouraging them to chase their dreams and stay on the right path. She believed in them, supported them, and did everything in her power to give them a good life. But what she didn't know, what she could have never imagined, was that one of her own children would grow up to betray her in the most unthinkable way. That behind the love and care she poured into her family, a monster was lurking. A monster who would one day take everything from her in an act so cold, so calculated, that it defied comprehension. Andre was the middle child. He had an older brother, Julian, a sister called Monique, who was actually his twin, and a younger brother called Fabian. Andre moved out of his house a few years before he met Gracie. Before he got married, he worked as a delivery driver for Kohl's supermarket. He even attended college for a degree in construction management. However, everything changed for him when he met Gracie in 2015. He was obsessed with her right from the beginning. She was stunning in every way possible, and he wanted to do everything in his power to give Gracie a lavish life. On the other hand, Gracie was also an extremely determined person. When Andre and Gracie started dating, she assured Andre that one day they would achieve all of their dreams. And they sure did, at least for a short while. If you like to watch travel and fashion content on social media, chances are that you've seen her before, even if you don't know her name. She is currently 21 years old and still posts on social media. She is known majorly for her Instagram account, which has 1 million followers as of now. Besides this, she also has a YouTube channel with over 300,000 subscribers. According to Famous Birthdays, she was born and raised in Australia and started posting regularly on social media in 2013. However, before Gracie became famous on social media, she was just another girl who used to work as a receptionist at a gym. Her life took a 180 when she started posting her pictures on Instagram. One thing that stands out about her right away is her undeniable beauty. With striking features and a natural charm, she had the perfect look to thrive on Instagram. But it wasn't just her appearance. Her carefully curated lifestyle and fashion content resonated with thousands, drawing in a dedicated following who admired not only her style, but the seemingly perfect life she showcased online. Andre and Gracie dated for almost 3 years before they had a baby in 2019. Since the arrest of Andre, She has removed all of the posts from her social media that had Andre in them, except a few with their son. She is dating someone else now. We don't know a lot about her current relationship, but we know that she is in a relationship with New Zealander Daniel Classman. The couple publicly confirmed their relationship on an Instagram post in 2023. Since then, they've shared glimpses of their life together, including luxury trips to destinations like the Maldives and Bali, just like she did with Rebello. Anyway, let's move on from Gracie because she's not the main character of this story. It's actually her ex-husband. However, it was important for us to tell you a little bit about Gracie and their lifestyle in general, since it had a huge role to play in the crime Andre committed. Another thing that we'd like to clarify here is that Andre and Gracie probably never married. We looked on the internet and couldn't find any information about whether they were ever married or any wedding photographers for that matter. So we're not sure about that. However, what we do know is that Andre became a huge part of Gracie's online empire. And when their son came along in 2019, he also became part of their content. Another thing we noticed while researching this couple was that Andre rarely appeared in front of the camera. It was not a couple channel where they had equal contributions. It was actually Gracie who was making all of the content, while Andre made occasional appearances in her posts on Instagram. To the outside world, they were the definition of perfection. Their life, their love, and their little family seemed like something out of a dream. Gracie was stunning, effortlessly capturing attention with her beauty. But Andre wasn't far behind. He had the classic good looks that made them seem like the ultimate power couple. And their baby was absolutely adorable. Together, they looked like a picture-perfect family. Their Instagram was a highlight reel of luxury. Exotic vacations, 5-star hotels, a massive, beautifully designed home, and a sleek Range Rover in the driveway. They dined at the finest restaurants, threw the cutest birthday parties, and attended glamorous events that only the wealthy could afford. But behind the curated photos and seemingly flawless life, there was a dark reality lurking beneath the surface. Because what their audience didn't know was that it was all a facade, a carefully crafted illusion built on lies, deception, and something far more sinister. When Gracie and Andre started dating back in 2016, Andre actually dropped out of college and decided to become Gracie's assistant for a $20,000 salary. This is the reason why he never really completed his studies. Piscopo's now deleted most of her content containing Andre, but did come across their Maldives vlog from 5 years ago. In most of the clips, you can see Andre playing with their adorable baby, swimming in luxurious pools, and having lavish candlelit dinners.
Baby shark, mommy shark, shark, shark. I had to get fun. I always mess it up. Mommy shark, do 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 baby.
Is having fun?
Baby shark.
This short clip would be enough to give you an idea of the life they portrayed online. However, Andre's mother, Colleen Rebello, didn't approve of Andre and Gracie's future plans. She wanted Andre to have a stable job and a source of income that was more consistent. Colleen herself was a biomedical and forensic science graduate. We came across her LinkedIn profile, which states that she graduated from Murdoch University. We couldn't find a lot of information on her, but from what we have gathered so far, she was a highly dedicated individual who wanted to do something with her life even at the age of 58. As we mentioned earlier in the video, Colleen and her husband Antonio divorced when their children were still young. Therefore, she was a single mom who looked after a lot of things by herself. However, once the kids were grown, she saw an opportunity to continue her studies, which she has always been passionate about. She enrolled in the university in 2018 and graduated in 2020. According to Colleen's LinkedIn About section, she's been active in supporting first-year university students and mentoring young students to transition better into university life. She also mentioned her interest in improving community health and mental health. She also wanted to foster relationships between healthcare providers in a consumer-centric approach. She had just started her new job in the healthcare sector in 2020 while living in her home of Bicton, Western Australia. However, little did she know that her son was planning something that she would have never dreamt of. On May 25th, Colleen woke up like any normal day. 2 of her children were still living with her in the house at the time, her youngest son Fabian, who worked part-time at a supermarket, and her daughter Monique, who was staying with Colleen temporarily while training as a paramedic. Her school was close to Colleen's house, which is why she decided to stay with her mother to save expenses on commute. This day was also like any other normal day. Fabian, her youngest son, relied on Colleen to drop him off at the supermarket every morning where he worked. She dropped Fabian to the supermarket in the morning at 10 a.m. and went about her business. Monique also went to her training. Everything seemed normal until 2 p.m., when Fabian realized that her mother was not back to pick him up from work. Fabian's shift ended at 2 p.m., and Colleen always used to pick him up at that time. So when Colleen didn't show up, Fabian thought it was off. He waited a while and then called her mother. Colleen's call records showed that Fabian called her 13 times. However, when he didn't receive any answer, he decided to walk home since his work was at a walkable distance from the house. It took him approximately 10 minutes to walk back home. When he entered the house, he immediately realized something was off. He was already stressed about the entire situation because it was very unlikely for Colleen to not pick up her calls. However, when he reached home, he heard the shower running, and like any normal person, he first thought that Colleen was home and taking a shower, which is why she wasn't picking up her calls. However, he couldn't shake the weird feeling off, so he called his mom expecting a reply. However, even after calling her name multiple times, he did not hear a reply. That's when he decided to go investigate the bathroom. He knocked on the door and then hesitantly entered to check what was wrong. What he saw was probably one of the most terrifying sights of his life. While reading the details of this case, we couldn't help but wonder what it would be like for her youngest child to find her in a state like this. This isn't only terrifying, but also extremely heartbreaking. He saw that the shower was running, and Colleen was kneeling on the bathroom floor with her body propped against the wall, unconscious.
In May 2020, when he was living with social media model Gracie Piscopo, he murdered his 58-year-old mother, Colleen. Her body was found under a running shower in her Bicton home. Prosecutors argued it was part of a plan by Rebello to claim life insurance policies worth around $1.5 million he'd taken out on his mother without her knowledge in the week before. The Supreme Court was told he was struggling financially and needed the money to maintain what was described as the couple's perfect but plastic lifestyle.
Despite the shower running, her body was still cold. Fabian found Colleen's body at around 2:30 p.m. and immediately called her sister Monique, who reached the house and contacted the police. She also called her eldest brother Julian and Andre. At around 3 p.m., Andre and Gracie received the news about Andre's mom and rushed to their house with their son. It was a huge shock for the entire family. Colleen's youngest son Fabian recalled that her mother didn't seem anything out of ordinary that morning. However, the circumstances of her death were as unusual as they could be. For starters, she was still wearing makeup and all of her jewelry when her body was found. Now, dying in the shower is not something unheard of, but if she got into the shower willingly, why did she still have her makeup and jewelry on, including her gold wristwatch? Other than this, the anti-slip mat that she always used while showering was also not there, which indicated that she didn't get into the shower willingly. However, there were no signs of a break-in or a robbery. Her children were devastated, and on top of that, not knowing what happened to their mother was the biggest strain on their minds. However, cracks started to form in a well-orchestrated plan of Colleen's brutal murder when an insurance agency contacted police suspecting a potential fraud and forgery of documents.
After his mother's death, he then tried to claim the funds, but was reported to police when concerns were raised by one of the insurance companies.
The insurance company informed the police that Colleen's middle child, Andre, had taken a few life insurance policies in Colleen's name just a few days before her untimely death. He stood to receive around $1.5 million in case something happened to Colleen. And the most suspicious part was that none of her other children were named as beneficiaries. Andre contacted all three of the life insurance companies only 3 days after Colleen passed away. However, to get the life insurance money, he needed to submit some documents. He tried to get the money from the first 2 insurance companies, but in vain, since it was too early after her death and the companies refused to pay him. However, the third company noticed a flaw in the documents provided by Andre. They noticed that Colleen's date of birth was wrong in one of her documents. Not only this, but Andre had also fabricated her autopsy and medical reports. He stated the cause of her death was a brain hemorrhage caused by a ruptured aneurysm. But in reality, her cause of death was never even determined properly. He even faked a voicemail from Colleen's longtime psychologist after hassling her for weeks about calling the insurance company herself to tell them that his mother was not suicidal. But the psychologist, Narina Sidhu, smelled a rat. She called the police and told them what Rebello had been up to. After receiving this information, the police reopened their investigation into Colleen's death and re-interviewed all of her family members. What they uncovered was both shocking and deeply unsettling. Colleen's sister, believed to be named Pearl Fleming, recalled something unusual from the day of her sister's passing, May 25, 2020. Around 10:30 a.m., as she was passing by Colleen's house, she noticed a strange vehicle parked outside, a Land Rover Evoque. This detail seemed insignificant at the time, but it took on a chilling significance later. Pearl also informed the police that at Colleen's funeral, she saw Andre and his wife arriving in the very same car. She also testified to this court saying, "On the way home, I drove past Colleen's house and saw an unusual car. There was a white Land Rover Evoque I had never seen before. It was parked out the front on the verge of my sister's house." She also later told the jury that the car was still parked outside Colleen's house when she was returning home and passed the house again at 1:30 p.m. In the meantime, Colleen's eldest son, Julian Rebello, decided to move into her house temporarily until the investigation was resolved. He wanted to keep an eye on things, ensuring that her home remained intact while the truth about her death unfolded. However, it wasn't long before he started noticing that something wasn't quite right. As he sorted through his mother's belongings, Julian realized that several of Colleen's important documents were missing, including her driver's license. This immediately raised concerns. Why would a personal document vanish so soon after her passing? Who had taken them, and for what purpose? The unease only deepened when Julian made another disturbing discovery. Andre had redirected all of Colleen's mail to his own residence in Beaconsfield, Perth. This made absolutely no sense. Colleen's house was far from empty. Monique, Fabian, and now Julian himself were all living there, fully capable of collecting and responding to any mail that arrived. There was no legitimate reason for Andre to take such a step, and Julian couldn't shake the feeling that something sinister was at play. Julian also inquired Andre about the life insurance policies he had taken on Colleen's name. To this, Andre said that Colleen asked him to do that since she has been worried about her health. However, something about this did not fit in. If Colleen had indeed wanted to take life insurance, she would have asked her eldest son Julian, who she clearly trusted more than Andre. One of Colleen's closest friends confirmed this when she testified in court. She told the court that Colleen didn't approve of her son's plastic fantastic lifestyle. Therefore, it was clear that Andre was the last person she would have contacted for something like this. However, there were more pressing matters to deal with at the time. For instance, the car parked outside Colleen's house during the time frame of her death. When police asked Andre about this, he admitted to visiting Colleen for 25 to 50 minutes between 10:40 a.m. and 11:30 a.m. However, Colleen's sister had seen the car outside the house at 1:30 p.m. as well. When Andre was asked why he never told anyone that he visited his mother the day she died, he simply said that no one asked him. He also told the police that Colleen told him to come over and that she was upset about her health, and even said something to him about herself, hinting that Colleen was suicidal. However, according to Colleen's friend, Kelda Reed, Colleen was far from being suicidal. They became friends almost 15 years ago when their children attended the same primary school in Bicton. They used to meet regularly and walk together. Reed told the police and later the court that Colleen had occasionally expressed her concerns about her son Andre and his social media life. She said Miss Rebello had told her she was not happy about it and did not think it was something that would sustain a long-term lifestyle. She was worried about when they got older and someone newer came along. She was not happy about it, but that's what they did, Reed told the police. She used to go down to the East Frio gym and she'd have her study with her on the treadmill, Miss Reed said. Things like that did not faze her. She just got on with what she had to do and did it well. She was a beautiful mom, would do anything for her kids, a wonderful mother. Miss Reed recalled to the court in the weeks before Miss Rebello died, she was excited about starting a new job on the board of the health department. The last time I saw her, we went for a walk, and she was talking about how excited she was about her new job and couldn't wait to start, she said. In October 2020, Andre Rebello was charged with attempted fraud and multiple counts of forgery related to the life insurance claims. Rebello was also charged with the murder of his mother, Colleen Rebello, in November 2022. All the witnesses and claims led the police back to Andre. Now, you might be wondering what role Gracie played in this entire scheme. According to her statement in the police investigation, she actually had no idea about Andre's plans. She told the police she and her cousin had a lunch planned for that day. However, Andre was not home when her cousin reached their house. She didn't know where Andre was, and she was extremely upset at him. Call records show that she called Andre 12 times and even left him a series of texts. However, Andre didn't answer. When he finally returned home at 2 p.m., Gracie was very upset, but they went for lunch anyway. Phone records also showed that Andre called his mother the morning of her death, asking her if she could take care of their son for the day. We actually came across this article that details things from Piscopo's perspective. She told the media that Andre appeared ordinary the day his mother. He said he was going to drop off his clothes for Fabian at his mom's house, she said. Besides, this article also stated, the records showed Miss Piscopo tried to call Mr. Rebello more than a dozen times between 11:10 a.m. and 11:35 a.m. She sent several messages asking Mr. Rebello where he was and telling him to answer his phone. The phone records showed a text she sent to Andre at 11:16 a.m. It said, "Andrew, your phone." Another text was sent seconds apart that read, "Where are you?" At 11:25, she sent Andre a series of texts. "OMG, I swear, Andre. Do you not have a phone? What is wrong with you? Answer for F's sake. I'm fuming at you, I'm so angry." Miss Piscopo told the court she was frustrated at the time. He had a habit of keeping his phone on silent, she told defense lawyer Anthony Elliott. He'd constantly have it on silent, and I couldn't reach him, and I was just angry. I thought he was coming to see my cousin. By this point, the police were certain that Andre was connected to Colleen's death. However, proving it was another matter entirely. The biggest obstacle was the autopsy report. Colleen's cause of death had been ruled inconclusive, leading investigators with little forensic evidence to build a solid case against him. Despite this, one undeniable fact stood out. Andre had forged documents in an attempt to claim Colleen's life insurance money. This was the only concrete crime the police could pin on him so far, but it wasn't enough to link him directly to her death. Without a clear cause of death or stronger evidence, the case remained frustratingly open-ended. However, investigators weren't ready to give up just yet. They knew there had to be more to the story, and they were determined to uncover the truth. Therefore, they placed a listening device in the bedroom he shared with Piscopo at their Beaconsfield home and a camera with audio in the couple's living room. According to a WA, they listened to conversations for weeks in the months after Colleen's death, hoping for something that would lead to a conviction for murder. In one conversation, Piscopo told Rebello she thought he was downstairs and at home on the day Colleen died. She told him she thought he was being framed for murder and cried about being interrogated by the police. It was clear from this conversation that Piscopo knew nothing of her partner's plan to kill his mother and cash in on her life insurance policies. For a long time, even after being arrested, Rebello claimed that he did not do it. According to him, he was already living a comfortable life and that he didn't need any money from his mother's insurance policies. But the reality was far from it. Andre and his wife were actually in heavy debt. From the outside, their Instagram-perfect lifestyle exuded luxury, expensive homes, extravagant vacations, and sleek high-end cars. To their followers, they appeared to be living the dream. But behind the perfectly curated photos and flashy posts lay an entirely different reality, one built on pressure, debt, and the desperate need to uphold their carefully crafted image. For Piscopo and Rebello, maintaining this illusion wasn't just about indulgence, it was a necessity. Social media had become their stage, and their reputation depended on the facade of wealth and success. However, this lifestyle came at a steep price, one they could barely afford. In truth, their financial situation was far less glamorous than it seemed. While Piscopo was landing big contracts and had managed to reach a six-figure income by 2020, the couple's lavish spending habits devoured every penny. No matter how much money came in, it was never enough to sustain their extravagant way of life. The reality behind the scenes was far from the effortless luxury they projected online. It was a constant, exhausting game of keeping up appearances. The beautiful house that they showed on their social media was actually rented for $880 a week. The lavish white Range Rover they drove was also on loan. Most of the holidays they went to were actually sponsor deals that were given to Piscopo for her social media. The reality was that they were living on credit cards and personal loans and begging for rent reprieves, reduced loan repayments, and government handouts meant for those in hardship during the COVID pandemic. However, despite this, they didn't seem troubled by their loans, which appreciated amounted to $120,000, including $40,000 in taxes. This is because Andre had a plan. He believed that he had been extremely successful in the last 3 years he had been investing in cryptocurrency. He promised Gracie that that was a big $500,000 coming from his cryptocurrency trading. But the harsh reality was that Andre hadn't made a single dollar in the 3 years he had spent investing in crypto. What looked like a promising venture had turned into a financial black hole, draining the resources rather than growing them. To make matters worse, since Andre managed all of Gracie's finances, she had little idea of the full extent of their debt. She trusted him to handle everything, unaware of just how deep they were sinking. As a stay-at-home father, Andre had taken complete control of their financial affairs, but instead of securing their future, he was steering them straight toward financial ruin. In December 2024, a 12-member jury in the Western Australia Supreme Court found Andre Rebello guilty of murdering his mother to claim life insurance money. Andre Rebello is scheduled to be sentenced for the murder and fraud convictions. As of now, Andre Rebello remains in custody awaiting sentencing. The trial, which began in late 2024 and concluded with a guilty verdict in December 2024, lasted several weeks. During the trial, Rebello pleaded guilty to fraud charges but denied murdering his mother. Andre's twin sister Monique calls this day one of the most horrible days of her life. She told WA Supreme Court that sometime after her mother's death, she was contacted by a psychologist she shared with her mom. Monique said the psychologist Narina Sidhu told her that she had concerns about her brother Andre, and that he had tried to use her name to find out information about her mom's insurance. Monique also called her brother to ask about this, but he said that he didn't have any idea and claimed that the psychologist must have been talking about someone else. Andre eventually texted me later and said Narina had the wrong Colleen and made a mistake. It was a different Colleen the issue was regarding, she said. He knew who Narita was and seemed to be aware. During the initial examination, investigators noted some abrasions on Colleen's face, but they were dismissed as minor and deemed insignificant at the time. With no immediate signs of foul play and an inconclusive cause of death, authorities had little to go on. However, as the investigation progressed and new evidence came to light, forensic experts took a closer look at those abrasions. What once seemed unimportant now pointed to something far more sinister. Further analysis suggested that Colleen's probable cause of death was suffocation, most likely by a pillow. This revelation changed everything, transforming what had initially appeared to be an unexplained passing into a suspected. In the end, what first seemed like an unfortunate and mysterious passing unraveled into a carefully concealed crime. The inconsistencies, the missing documents, the financial deception, and the suspicious redirection of Colleen's mail all pointed toward a chilling truth. Her death was no accident. While the police initially struggled with inconclusive findings, the deeper they dug, the more apparent it became that Andre was at the center of it all. It's honestly quite sad how the relentless pursuit of a picture-perfect life on social media drove Andre down such a dark path. In his desperation to maintain the illusion of wealth and success, he found himself trapped in a cycle of financial ruin and deception. The pressure to uphold an extravagant lifestyle, one filled with luxury cars, designer goods, and lavish vacations, became all-consuming. Andre wasn't just living beyond his means, he was drowning in the expectations he had set for himself. Every flashy Instagram post, every carefully curated glimpse into their dream life only added to the weight of the reality he was trying to hide. As the debts piled up and his cryptocurrency investments failed, the facade began to crack. Instead of facing the truth, Andre chose to take the most sinister route imaginable. Whether it was greed, desperation, or a combination of both, his obsession with wealth and status led him to commit an unthinkable act, and he had no one to blame for it but himself. With this, we'd like to conclude this video. We tried to experiment with something different with this documentary-style video. If you like it, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and leave a comment down below, letting us know your thoughts on Andre's bone-chilling story.